I remember the knock. Heavy, desperate. My father's fist on my door at 9 in the morning, pounding until the walls trembled. My son was still asleep, clutching the toy car he'd gotten last year, his only birthday gift. Then, I didn't move. I sat at the kitchen table, coffee cooling in my hands, and listened to the man who taught me how to ride a bike beg like a stranger outside my home. The night before, my son had asked, "Mom, don't they need me?" His eyes had been wet, fixed on the screen where balloons and clowns danced in the background of my father's live stream. A bounce house, tables overflowing with food, my nieces tearing into mountains of gifts, laughing so loud I could hear it through the phone. My father had told me money was tight, told me they couldn't make it to my boy's birthday. He'd said it like a duty, like truth. I had believed him. And then I saw the circus he built for someone else's children, his real grandchildren, as he'd once called them. I snapped a photo. Their rent check sitting where my mail always sits, on the counter. I typed, "Return to sender." Sent it before I could change my mind. By the time I set my phone down, my heart wasn't racing. It was steady, cold, a decision made. My father raised me on lessons of sacrifice. Family comes first, he used to say. I worked 2 jobs to keep the lights on when my husband left. I scraped change to buy my son's school shoes, while my parents slipped money into my sister's hand for vacations. I told myself it was just how things were. She needed more help. She had more kids. It wasn't favoritism. But favoritism doesn't rent bounce houses while your grandson asks why grandpa didn't call. Favoritism doesn't laugh into a camera while lying about being broke. I didn't confront him then. I didn't call or shout. I let silence do the work. I let him wake the next morning and realize rent hadn't cleared. I let panic tighten his chest. And when he came to my door, pounding for 20 minutes, I didn't flinch. Inside, I was already replaying the plan. Step 1. The check returned meant no buffer. My father had leveraged my trust, asked me to handle his bills because online banking was too confusing. For years, I'd been the safety net. No longer. Step 2. I withdrew my name from the joint account I'd been stupid enough to share, the one he convinced me to open when Mom had her surgery. Just until we're steady, he'd said. My deposits stopped being their crutch overnight. Step 3. I went to the landlord, a quiet man with tired eyes who'd once told me, "Your father's lucky you're the one handling his payments." I slid the photo across his desk, the check marked "Return to sender" in my handwriting. He didn't argue. He didn't even ask why. He just nodded, slow and understanding. The pounding at my door grew weaker. I imagined my father's face when he'd tried his card that morning. Declined. Imagined the landlord's call he'd be dreading. Imagine the fear crawling up his spine as he realized his lifeline, me, was cut. I didn't feel guilty. Not when I thought of my son's question. Not when I remembered his quiet voice. Don't they need me? A child shouldn't have to measure his worth against balloons and clowns. My son didn't need their parties. He needed me to show him what respect looks like, what dignity costs. When my father's knock finally stopped, the silence was thick. My son stirred in his room. I rose, poured the cold coffee into the sink, and opened the curtains. Outside, the sun lit up the street like nothing had happened, like it was just another morning. But I knew the world had shifted. Later, messages came, calls, voicemails. "We need to talk. Why would you do this? Your mother's worried." I didn't reply. They had taught me silence was survival. I'd learned to swallow pain, to pretend crumbs were enough. But silence as a weapon? That was new. And I wielded it well. By the end of the week, word spread through the family. My sister called me selfish, said I was cruel. I laughed. A sound sharper than I expected. Cruel? No. Cruel was letting my son believe he wasn't wanted. Cruel was live streaming joy while denying him a cake. What I did wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. I don't know if my father expected me to forgive, to open the door, let him in, let him explain. Maybe he thought tears or excuses would soften me. But some betrayals don't mend. Some truths, once seen, burn too deep to ignore. Now when I think of that morning, the pounding, the silence, I don't see a father. I see a man who underestimated me, a man who taught me family comes first, but never thought I'd put my own family above his lies. I chose my son. I chose respect. And when my father's world shook that morning, I didn't move. Because sometimes justice isn't loud. Sometimes it's a single photo, a return check, and the quiet knock of consequences at your door. And sometimes you just don't open it.